black degeneracy, we got to go back to the early 1900s to really understand how long we've been fighting this war against this concept called black degeneracy. This is a brother named Eric Waldron. He wrote for the Marcus Garvey paper. He was part of the UNIA, Universal Negro Improvement Association. And he wrote an article because the black people during the early 1900s were fighting a war for the black identity with a group of whites called small hats. You might call them white so-called Jews. We call them small hats. Some people call them Zionists. And essentially, the Zionists were saying this group of people should call themselves the N-word. That's what they are, and they should accept it. And the brothers and sisters during that time said, we absolutely will not do that. We're proud people and we're productive people. So I want to read this for you so you can understand. This is part of the article. This is 1922. 5 years ago, it was a common thing to speak of an Italian as a wop, a Jew as a sheen, a Pole as a kike. Today, the Negro to a vast portion of the American public is yet the N-word. The word is a stigma of inferiority and its users know it. Ever since it was used to label the Negro as a member of an inferior race. The Russians and Poles and Lithuanians who came to America and were called names strenuously object to it, and as a result, being white, they have managed to grow far beyond the reaches of objectionable compliments, meaning insults. But the N-word lingers, and here comes Professor Haywood Brown of the New York World condoning the use of it. Now, if you just had to guess, who might you guess that Haywood Brown is? What you think, brother and sister?
Small hat.
A small hat. The small hat is saying, no, we should call ourselves this word. I want people to hear this. Never before were there black people who believed that this was our identity, and that's what we should call ourselves. Here in 1922, we're seeing the origin of where someone said that this was our identity. Now let's see what he has to say. Professor Brown, who is the Dean of the School of Spontaneity in Literature, sides with Carl Sandburg, apostle of the free verse movement in poetry, who thinks that it is not a bad word at all, and the Negro ought not to blush and mumble at its use. So let's just take a quick look at Carl Sandburg. Who might Carl Sandburg be? Another small hat. Now let's see what this hat has to say. Carl Sandburg expressed himself about something yesterday which we had been turning over in our mind. He thinks that one of the necessary steps in the progress of the American Negro is for him to accept the N-word and make it his own. To be sure, the word had its origins in contempt. So he's admitting we created the word to say black people have no value.
Come on, brother.
This is 1922. But acceptance itself would serve to rob the N-word of all sting. From the standpoint of language, there is much to be said for the N-word. Colored man is hopelessly ornate, and Negro is tainted with ethnology. More than that, it is a literary word. The N-word is a live word. There is a ring to it like that of a true coin upon a pavement. So he said it just sounds so good when black folks call themselves the N-word.
This is the hat scene.
This is a hat now. This is not a black, these are the small hats who are saying this is what the black race should call themselves. He says, nor are all the connotations of the word shameful to the Negro race. Something of the terrific contributions of physical energy which the Negro race has made to America is inherent in the N-word. To our mind, and this is the small hat saying, to us as small hats, it brings up a vision of a man wrestling with great burdens and conquering them. Never ignorant, getting gold to come. I'm sorry. No, he says, blood and sweat and tears have all combined to make the N-word stark and simple. Among namby-pamby words, it looms like a great rock. It is basic, but not base. I want people to understand the relevance of this. The foundation of this concept of black degeneracy, and you can get, if you want to see where this is, you can get the book by Tony Martin. It's called African Fundamentalism. It's on page 100. This is a reprint of the article this whole idea of black people accepting subculture and poor behavior and using it as our identity, as what defines us, is something we never came up with.
Right.
It's a foreign concept that was created by individuals outside of our race. And they use us strategically to push it forward. Now, during that time in the 20s, the black people of that time, Brother Garvey, the UNIA, who we just saw the brother wrote the article, were very clear about this. You will not create a new identity for us. What did they say in the Declaration of Rights of the Negro Peoples of the World? Declaration number 11.
Right.
We deprecate, meaning we hate the use of this term as applied to Negroes, and demand that the word Negro be written with a capital N. So on our way to being black and African people, one of the stops leaving that N-word behind was Negro. And we were on our way to something better. And those brothers and sisters during that time fought against this. But this is what happens. The small hats push this concept of black degeneracy through proxy. What that means is they don't want to come before us and say, do these things that any other time black people would do as a subculture. Nobody would put it on the forefront and say using this kind of language or acting in this manner represents who we are as a people. It's something we do on the side. If you're smoking your joint, you might do that behind the house somewhere, but you wouldn't do it in front of your grandparents. You wouldn't walk outside in public and say, this is what represents black people. It was subculture. They find talented black people and they weaponize those people and get those people to act as their agents, even if those black people don't know it. So black people who have less than favorable behavior, if they're talented, they take those people, they put money and resources behind those people, they put them in front of us, and all we see is the black people who don't even know many times they're acting as agents of the small hat, promoting poor behavior to our people. They've been trying this for over 100 years, and they finally got the major breakthrough.
That's right.
With a group called NWA.
That's right.
These were talented brothers who were not intentionally sitting down with no white folks saying, we're going to go out here to do harm to our people. They were in a culture where our people called us the N-word, grandparent, everybody used that term. They didn't even know that that was inappropriate and horrible to represent our people. And they weren't necessarily trying to get every black person to accept it. But as agents of an idea presented by small hats 100 years ago, the hats saw them and said, perfect, we got some talented young brothers. We think we can take the culture with them. So what I'm going to do, if you have children in here, I'm going to play something because I can show you better than I can tell you. It's some profanity in it, and it's kind of filthy, some of the things that he said. So if you want to take them out now, you can. But I want you to see for yourself, so there's no question about what I'm saying. The small hat, Jerry Heller, is the one who saw NWA calling themselves that term, which was the platform of the small hats, taking subculture, things that were embarrassing to us, and presenting it as the identity of our people. He came and put money and resources behind them and pushed that to our people as if it was us talking. So he's going to say some very horrible language, but I want you to hear this because I want you to see. Degeneracy starts with the small hat. They use our people by proxy to put it forth and make us think that we're the ones that come up with this.
Come on.
Question, Sergio, and I answer whatever the fuck I feel like answering. So, I loved what was happening here. I loved the rap scene. And I thought that it was a viable scene because I didn't like Bronx rap. I call it the era of gold chains and big dicks, you know? Guys wearing gold chains walking around holding their crotches. So it wasn't musical, and it didn't have any kind of humor to it, and no sense of humor to their music. So when I heard what was happening on the West Coast, I liked that. Mm-hmm. While I liked, you know, the Dream Team and JJ Fad, I liked them a lot. When I heard Straight Outta Compton, I said to myself, wow. So I said, this is what I want to be doing. I want to be in the NWA business. So our relationship was unheard of for a almost middle-aged white Jewish businessman to have a relationship like that with a early 20s ex-drug dealer from Compton. So our relationship developed into not only a teacher-pupil, but a father-son kind of relationship.
Yeah, and it must be something great to know you were behind, a very revolutionary change in the music industry, as far as with Ruthless and Eazy-E.
Well, Sergio, I've been involved with the Panthers. I represented Ike and Tina Turner. But of all the things that I've done in my life, I believe that the most important contribution that I've ever made to the music business was NWA and Ruthless Records. Okay, Dre says, I guess Jerry Heller picked the wrong nigga.
Yeah.
You decide. Is Jerry Heller the white devil? Or is Jerry Heller the founding genius of gangster rap?
White devil.
But he makes us act like we got to pick between both of them. Can he be the evil genius who was the founding father of gangster rap? Why is this important? I want people to understand. These individuals that we were talking about, the whole concept that filthy vulgarity in language, sexuality, all of these things that we accept as black culture today, there was no black person that decided that this kind of filth should be on the forefront and represent our identity. It was done by small hats who used black people who didn't necessarily know what they were being used for, but they got paid good and many of them didn't care. These are the individuals who've always been behind what we call black degeneracy. And so they took a group called NWA and got them to convince us that we should kill one another and that it was cool for black men to murder one another. That black women had no value except for sexual toilets. They got us to believe that everything filthy is what represented alcohol and drugs. All of those subculture things was who we are. Smoking, that's who we are. And they cracked the foundation of self-respect among youth culture. I was there, so I know. Once they did it, they opened the door for individuals like Luke Skywalker and the 2 Live Crew, who were very localized before that. But now, because we didn't have any standards, now they could walk around with our women naked, and we would accept that nationally as part of who we were as black folks and how we did things. Even during that same time, we had an individual who's credited with starting hip-hop, Bambaataa, who we now find out was a degenerate that was going around raping young boys in this country and all around the world. So the founder of hip-hop is a pedophile who is linked through Planet Rock and his music career to the Small Hats. NWA is managed by the Small Hats. Who's financing Luke Skywalker and allowing that music to get on the radio and hear our people's ears and get these images? All Small Hats. And what they did is what my brother gave me the term, and it's exactly what it's called. They weaponize entertainers. In other words, they have an idea that they want to exist. If they come and tell us to do something that's disrespectful, they know a brother might get up and bust them in their mouth. So instead, they find talented individuals in our community, finance them to promote bad messages that they may already be doing, but they make them louder and more acceptable in our community. And as weaponized entertainers, they give the ideas to us that our enemies really want to push on our people. I'm going to give you a modern day example of a sister. I don't want anybody to look at this and say, oh, my sister's a race traitor. I really don't believe our sister has a clue what she's doing.